Hi, my name is Bill Pienias, and I'm here to talk about New Year's resolutions. It's that time of the year again. What's interesting is right around the holidays, there's always a mixed bag of feelings and emotions. Many people are, instead of being joyful and happy and cheer giving, they're actually really anxious, or they're lonely, or sad. They're missing a loved one. Might be anxious for the debt that comes up when they're buying presents, or even the anxiety of, how do I buy the perfect present for the perfect person I love so much? It brings all these feelings and emotions up. I don't know if you're like me, but many people, when you meet them, they have these mixed emotions. It might even be the mixed emotions of, I got to go to all these parties and seem happy and cheerful and bring all this joy, and all of a sudden I'm going, man, I'm struggling. My finances are in the tubes, etc. That's the dark side of it. Then there's this other side, was, hey, everybody's more joyful, more happy. They're smiling more. There's more activities. There's things that you go on out in public spaces and people are nicer to each other in general. So there's this mixed bag of feelings. And what comes along with it is this looming thing that we call New Year's resolutions. That New Year's is coming and you're saying, man, it's a chance for a new start. The one thing I'm going to say in preference to all of these things, that you need to have an end and a beginning. And the other part is that when you now know that the end is coming, we know that when deadlines happen, we typically get more things done. Whether it be the deadline when you're in school to get a paper done or a test, or it was a deadline to get something paid off. You do whatever it takes to get these things done. Well, here it is now coming towards the end of the year, and you might have a couple scenarios going on in your life. I want to frame this all as to say, this is the holiday season, and I would like to change this from a holiday season to the separation season. Separation season is actually when you get a chance to take a step back and separate yourself from all of these things going on, and you get to reframe what happens in your life. You get the chance to reframe what you want to do and what you want to become, or more importantly, to gain momentum to the end of the year to go into the new year. So let's talk about the holiday season in a different way. We know that you're probably going to go to parties, and some people may have some anxiety or anxiousness about gaining weight, about over drinking or overeating, or more importantly, you might be a little anxious about the debts that you're going to incur. This is the time to sit down and actually say, this is how I'm going to go into these situations. For example, if you go to a Christmas party, you might want to be drinking club soda instead of the vodka drinks. It looks like it. Nobody's going to ask you, are you drinking or not drinking? You get a chance to actually mingle without that anxiety. If you're going to go to a party and you're afraid of overeating, only eat the fruits and vegetables. Don't eat all the other things, which are the miniature hot dogs and all the candies and things of that sort. You can still eat, but just eat and decide to eat those things. In terms of the perfect present, what if you actually had a specific budget that you wanted or that you were going to use, and then you asked the person, what are the things that you really want, or what are the things do you think would be beneficial to your life? And they will actually give you a couple things that they would either want, like, or the things that might make their life easier. Sometimes the perfect gift is just a massage, or sometimes the perfect gift is to say, I'm going to give you a day off and I'm going to actually do maybe your yard work or housework or whatever. You may not even have to spend any money. Believe it or not, there's several ways that you can approach the new year and, more importantly, approach the holidays. So once we get through that area and want to make sure you understand that piece, New Year's resolutions usually start during the holiday season. So let's talk about, again, the separation season right now. Because going into New Year's, when you want to separate yourself from the old version, you want to separate your bad habits from the habits that you'd like to create, the habits that you want to design, the life that you want to design. And the reality of the New Year's resolution is to take a step back, to separate yourself from everyday life, everyday ongoings, and to say, what do I want to do and what do I want to become? Part of the things that I would do during the holiday season too is a habit of saying, I'm going to approach these parties in a new way. I'm going to actually focus on developing new relationships or repairing old relationships. I'm going to ask people their opinions about certain things, how they feel about certain things, with no judgment and no preconceived notions. That way you get a chance to start practicing some of the things that maybe you wanted to do. Like, for example, I want to be a better question asker. That would be the time to start practicing it during those holiday parties. How about in terms of giving rather than receiving? So instead of looking for things that you'd like to receive, what can I give to people? And it might be as simple as buying a pack of 24 socks and going out into the world and looking for people that maybe are homeless and say, hey, I'd like to give this to you. Believe it or not, those little things, those little charitable things, creates a whole nother new opportunity for you to become the person you'd like to become. And then that sets up looking into the future that everything and anything is possible if you want to create it. So let's talk about this New Year's resolution thing. Let me give you some statistics. The first one, New Year's resolutions, everybody has them. And if you were to look back at the number one thing that was done in 1980, 1970s and 1980s, it was to quit smoking. And then it shifted to be more healthy and become more fit, means go to the gym and things of that sort. But today, the number one New Year's resolution is to lose weight. The second one is to become more fit or go into the gym. This is the interesting statistic that when people set New Year's resolutions, whether they be from the past and or even today, there was a date that you need to pay attention to. The first date is January 13th to January 20th. They call it Quit Week. 50% of all people who had their New Year's resolution came on into New Year's and said, man, I'm going to change my life. 2 weeks later, they quit. They've lost hope. They set unrealistic goals. They're out. Here's the second thing you need to know. 6 weeks into it, which means the second week, Valentine's Day of February, second week of February, Valentine's Day, 80% of people have totally quit on their New Year's resolutions. And if you think, well, wow, why did they even set it? Well, at least they started down the path of doing this. But the reality is that most people, when they set their New Year's resolutions, they set it on a wish rather than a vision. And so I want to talk a little bit about how do we separate ourselves from the old version and create a new version? What are some practical steps to do this so that New Year's resolutions now doesn't become a burden, it becomes an opportunity for you to become the person you'd like to become. Whenever you start something new, you have an opportunity to transform your life to become the person that you've always wanted to be. Use it as an opportunity, not just as a way of here we go again, but as an opportunity to say, here we go into the future. And it's really, really critical. Now let's talk about some of the common things that happen, why people don't succeed. I'm just going to go through these lists. The first one is they set an unrealistic goal. Most people talk about health, fitness, wellness, those types of things. Most people compare themselves today to the very best shape that they were in. Well, the reality is I graduated college and I was a college athlete and I knew what it was like to be at that peak performance of my body. But if I were today to say, I want to run a marathon, it is totally unrealistic to think that I'm going to run a marathon within the next 90 days. I'm out of shape in running. I'm a little heavier than I want to be. So I need to get prepared in order to do it. So if you think that you are going to be in very short order in the best shape of your life in the next 90 days because of you're comparing it to what you were in the past, it's an unrealistic goal. So we're going to talk more about how do you set up those your goals realistically so that you avoid this situation. The other one is specific, lack of specificity. I want to be nicer. I'd like to have more happiness. Well, what does that mean? And there's some practical ways to bring that into existence and writing it down in a meaningful way. I'll talk about that in a little bit too. Insufficient planning. People say they want to go do things and they've never set the time to go do it, or they've never thought through how do I manage my tasks based on the time that I have. Well, that's another thing. And then lack of social support. People want to become more fit or they want to lose more weight. They hang out in the same places that they did before. Or more importantly, they don't actually go talk to somebody to get some support on what are some substitutes of things that eat differently or to exercise differently. What is that support group? And then more importantly, you might need to be in a place. If you said, hey, I'd like to change some of my bad habits, you might want to go to a place in your church and or in your local community and say, do you have any social support groups that I can go spend some time with to get some of these things right? Another perfect example of that. And or get even a personal accountability partner, someone that wants to do the same thing as you, whether it be become more fit, whether it be lose weight, whether it be to be more charitable and giving. You might want to go with a friend to a soup kitchen or a food pantry to give out food. Whatever it might be, there's always somebody that you can run along with. And that's another part of the support group. Sometimes people lose motivation because they don't get enough results fast enough. We'll talk more about that. And then the last thing is the stress of life change is I don't know if I could live my life any differently than I'm doing right now. I'm doing everything possible and nothing's working. Those are some of the ways that that may cause you not to have success in your New Year's resolutions or your life transformation, the separation season as I talked about before. So let me go through them again. Unrealistic goals, lack of specificity, insufficient planning, the lack of support, losing motivation because it's not getting fast enough, they're not doing things fast enough, and then just the overall stress that they have to make a total life change because they don't like where they're at today and they feel almost unrealistic to be the person that they'd like to become. So those are some of the common failures. So let's talk about some things to help you become more successful. 1, do you have a clear vision of who you'd like to become or what you'd like to do in this next up and coming year? Here's a great question for you to ask. What has to happen in order for me to say this was a successful year? So for me, I want to be in a certain weight area. So if I know that I want to be at that weight on December 31st of next year, I have to look back into January through December. What has to happen for me to say that that was successful? It might be in business. I need to make this much money, and I would say that was a successful year. Or I want to get a raise by next year, or I want to get a new job by next year. The question is, what has to happen in order for me to get those things, to achieve those things? That's the first question. It's a great question to ask. Then the second is to set a realistic goal. And by setting a realistic goal, let's say December 31st, I want to weigh, I'll just use a random weight. I want to weigh 200 pounds. And that's very specific. I want to weigh 200 pounds. So what's measurable? I want to measure my weight every day to make sure that I'm getting just a one gram or one, the decimal points. It's let's say I'm 240.1. Can I get 240.0 and then 239.9 just to lose it every single day? Focus on getting those little gains every day. That would be a measurement. The question would be, is it achievable? Can I really lose 40 pounds in 12 months? Is it relevant? Why do I want to do it? And that's the relevancy, is why do I want to lose it? I want to feel better. I don't want to snore. I may have sleep apnea. It might be that, hey, listen, I hurt too much. I'm in pain. I have too much inflammation. My arthritis is popping up. Whatever it might be, you need to have your why, the relevancy of why you want to do it. And then make sure you have the time bound, which is easy to do it at December 31st. This is what I'd like to have done. And breaking down the goals into little things, actionable things. So let me give you some examples of what that means. First thing is, what has to happen in the next 3 months? If we want to use that weight thing, or I say I want to get more in shape and I want to lose weight. So the question would be, in the next 3 months, what has to happen? And it would probably be, I have to either join a gym or I have to start a regular exercise routine. The second is I need to start measuring what I'm eating. And so the first 3 months might be just setting those things up. Did you know why most people quit working out? Is because they go after their workout with a banshee. they go crazy their first workout. And do you know that if you haven't worked out, once you start working out, you're going to be sore. So instead of going to the gym and just lifting and doing all these crazy weights, and maybe even excessive things, how about you go do some research to say, what is the exercise that we should be doing to start? In our company, we have a thing called Vitality. And Vitality is focused on incentivizing healthy living. And one of the things of healthy living is to move your body, including walking. And the main goal was to get to 10,000 steps. So what they did is they looked at how can they break down getting someone to 10,000 steps, which was viewed as one of the ultimate and optimal amounts of steps a day for somebody that would be healthy to do. If you were not walking, to go to 10,000 steps and spend that much time to do it, it would be almost unattainable. But what if you broke it down into smaller versions? Let's say you did 2,000 steps the first week. And then the next week you did 4,000 steps a day. And then after that you did 6,000 steps. They found those smaller increments actually led to somebody becoming in the habit of walking and achieving now higher numbers of steps on a daily basis to getting to 10,000 steps. It's the same process for a person, whether it be trying to lose weight, trying to become more fit. It could even be having more joy. I'll give you an example of this fluffy thing. I remember a situation we were talking about marriage and finance and things of that sort. And by the way, we have some podcasts that are coming up on this subject. I wanted to be nicer to my wife. So the question was, how does you become nicer to your wife? Well, I started to talk to some professionals that knew relationship counseling, marriage counseling. I said, so how do you do something like that? What would you recommend? And it was real simple. They said, here's a simple process. First one is go read the book, The 5 Love Languages. Which language does your wife best speak in? And which ones do you best speak in? If they don't match up, you have to speak her language. So for me, I'm not an acts of service person. My wife is an acts of service. So one of the ways that I can show that I want to be nicer to my wife is to do more acts of service. For example, pick up my laundry. Maybe even do the dishes. Potentially cleaning the table after we eat. Those are all acts of service. The second, I'd like to be nicer to my wife. Do I ask more questions of her? Do I say, how do you feel about it? Do I pause and put down my phone instead of doing texts and emails and actually go speak to my wife and say, how was your day? How's things going for you? How can I help? Those simple things creates an environment that shows I care. And what I would do is I would measure on a weekly basis, which, we say you got to track your progress. That's the next part. You have to have a plan and a goal and track your progress. Just like that, to be nicer to my wife or to my spouse, to track it. How many times did I do the dishes? When I was home, how many times did I clean the table or clear the table from dinner? How many times did I take out the garbage? Instead of having my wife do it, I did it. Those are little things because that's an act of service to say that I care about my wife. What is that for you? It might be, your wife might be words of affirmation. How many times do you say to her or him, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that you did this. Thank you for being so kind. Or more importantly, when you were with our children, you did this, this, and this. And I just want to let you know, I appreciate that. I saw that. And the question is then, how many times do you compliment your spouse or your friend? Whatever it might be. There are simple ways for you to measure things that you'd like to achieve. I wanted to be a kinder, more loving, more giving person. And those were some examples that I could do it in my home, and then I could do it in my business, and I could do it in my community. One really important thing about setting a goal in for the new year is to be flexible. And what I mean by flexible, if you don't do let's say working out. You go start working out, you get sore and you miss 2 or 3 days. That doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you're repairing your body, and maybe you need a longer period of time for rest to get back on the workout cycle. The reality is you don't have to work out an hour a day. If you worked out 20 minutes 3 times a week, and that one might be a very simple thing of doing body squats, doing some push-ups, and if you can't do a regular push-up, do a push-up on the wall. Do some jumping jacks. Walk for 20 minutes. Those are all practical things to do. And then as you become more fit and as you start getting in better shape, as your heart rate gets a little bit more regulated and used to those types of things, you can start adding in other things. The reality is success is not that far away, but success is always done on daily activities or a daily focus, a plan to achieve them. And I will say one real important thing about New Year's resolutions. You must sit down first, like I said before, is what is your vision of what you would like to accomplish? If you look back through that year, what would you like to be? What would you like to have achieved? What would you like to do? And make sure it's very specific. And then I hope that you go back and listen to what we just talked about and what are the practical things that you could do and measure those and do it on a consistent basis. And I wanted to add one last thing in terms of the measurements. If I were to look at a year, I break it down into quarterly things, in 90 days. What do I like to achieve, or what would I want to achieve in that 90 days to help me get to that goal at the end of the year? So for me, my weight is, I'm a little heavier than I'd like to be right now, and I want to get that down. So I have a 90-day goal of losing 10 pounds. And that 90-day goal of 10 pounds is that how do I get my weight lower tomorrow than it is today, just a little bit, even if it's that 0.1 pound. But how can I get a little bit lower? And the other part would be, instead of eating until I'm full, I would eat a smaller portion and then wait to see if I'm still hungry. And what's the reality? Normally, I'm not really hungry. I'm eating because I'm bored. The other thing I'm going to do is, in terms of working out, I work out on a fairly regular basis. I'm a fairly strong person, and I do lift weights. But I also don't do as much cardio or just a couple exercises after. Like, for example, after I do some weightlifting, how about I walk for 5 minutes? It's only 5 minutes. Believe it or not, those extra calories will make a difference. As I've asked every professional fitness trainer, just that little extra 5 minutes at the end, keeping your heart moving, keeping your body moving, will actually maybe make a long-lasting effect of my weight dropping. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to measure it for 90 days, and I'm going to make sure that I book the time appropriately, even if I have to sleep 10 minutes less to get to the gym a little earlier. Those are some very simple things. So let me bring this to a close. Life is hard. You have to choose your heart. No matter what you do, I want you to know doing life is not for the faint of heart. It's going to be hard. So there's some simple quote that I love, and I wanted to share it with you because this is really a choice. It's called Choose Your Heart. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Choose your heart. Obesity is hard. Being fit is hard. Choose your heart. Being in debt is hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your heart. Life will never be easy. It will be hard, but you can choose your hard wisely. So all I ask you to do is, during this holiday season, during this New Year's preparation opportunity, to get clear on what you'd like to become, what you'd like to do, what you'd like to have happen. Write it down in a very specific way. Look to measure it in 90-day increments, and how do you do things on a daily basis to say, am I going in the right direction? And when things come in and distract you and sidetrack you, don't lose faith. Get back on the track, and then choose your heart. God's best, and have a great New Year's resolution.
Thank you for joining us today. As we head into the holidays, we want to just let you know that we're grateful for you and our incredible community. Let's continue to build it.